I don't even know
Well,
what deal you can make with a bunch of terrorists who do nothing but lie and want to kill you.
Chris, I'm confused by that. It's like they can't fight. Like they have no capabilities. All they do is they fire off some random drones to civilians.
Chris Cuomo invited a MAGA supporter, John Fetterman, on his News Nation program. Fetterman calls himself a Democrat, but, as usual on TV, he defends the Trump administration and its destructive policies. And this time he did the same when the discussion turned to the Trump administration's flawed war strategy. We will now watch some clips of the conversation between Chris Cuomo and John Fetterman, and the narrator will also share his thoughts. So let's watch it together.
1 month plus into the war, are we any closer to it ending? It doesn't seem so. President Trump says we already won the war. America and the IDF have dropped thousands of bombs, crushing all of these different communities. Who knows what's happening to Iranians on the ground? We're told the regime leadership and its weaponry are decimated, and yet the regime is still fighting back, killing Iranians, and seems to be getting louder, flaunting its control of a chunk of the world's energy flow. Now, the president says the regime is begging for a deal. The regime comes out and says no deal. Trump says he'll stop fighting to talk. The regime says no ceasefire. Trump says we're going to take control of the strait whenever we want, but then seems to celebrate the regime being in control, saying they gave us a gift. The gift was the regime deciding to let a few non-American ships through. When pushed on the war, the White House says we may send in troops and the president will not go to Congress first. Here at home, we have a shutdown the president refuses to end. Reports of TSA officers forced to sleep in their cars and sell blood plasma to make ends meet. ICE agents wandering airports as lines grow. Let's bring in the one Democrat who voted against his party to keep the government open, and he may be seeing blowback for that in the polls. Democratic Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman. Mr. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Hi. Hey, Chris. It's great to be here.
So we're both heading into Easter here, and I don't think we've ever needed rebirth and renewal more. My question to you is, do you think the Senate stays, or is there nothing really, no deal on the table worth staying for in terms of the shutdown?
I truly don't know. I mean, things seems to shift here or there. But what I've always maintained, whether during this shutdown or the shutdown, last year, it's always wrong to shut the government down. I don't care if it's the Republicans or the Democrats behind it. And now the people that are driving that, they end up with empty pockets. There was no health care, but it just punished, and they plunged 42 million Americans into food insecurity and now suspended SNAP, and all of our employees weren't paid for that entire period now. And now I'm traveling every year, and I talk to TSA agents, and uniformly they are desperate. They are angry and they are exasperated, where I'm like, why are we doing this? We just don't get it. I mean, these are not rich people. They make around $50,000 a year. Should be our wheelhouse. These are the kind of people that we should be fighting for. And now we're talking about affordability, and now we're denying them to their paychecks. And now and we knew going into it that shutdown of DHS would have zero impact on forcing any kinds of changes at ICE. And that's here we are right now. So what is it that we really get out of it? All we've done is we've punished TSA and other employees under DHS and made us less safe, and now creating mass chaos in our air traffic system across America.
So the Democrats started it. Is it true that the president refuses to finish it? That when there was a deal on the table that the senators on the Republican side wanted to take, they were told no by Trump? That's what Senator John Kennedy says.
I mean, there's deals back and forth, but it's really there's a core truth here right now. Democrats have no leverage. And we've never had that, because ICE already had the money that they needed from the big, beautiful bill that I did not vote for. We had no leverage over it. And now they haven't agreed to any significant kinds of changes that we were demanding, and now I called for Noam to be fired. She was. And now we had an opportunity to work with someone. And in this case, Senator Mullen, now Secretary Mullen, was a friend. And I had the ability to work with him directly. He invited me to go to Turks and Caicos. If people remember, Americans were looking at a decade in prison because of a couple random bullets in their luggage. And we worked together, and not one single American, ended up going to prison. So he's a competent and an honest and a committed guy.
Oh, that's interesting. That's Senator. Take one more step on that for me, because I got to tell you, I was surprised. I thought that your vote was, hey, look, presidents get to pick their staff. I'm not going to hold this up. I'm voting. That's what I thought it was. I didn't know that you thought he was a good fit for the job, because I've never seen anybody in that position with no experience in law enforcement, let alone Homeland Security.
Yeah, well, Mayorkas may have had some experience, and the border turned into an absolute disaster. And I referred to Noam as their version of Mayorkas. But I do believe he's committed, and we've had multiple conversations, and his top priority is to secure our border, round up all of the criminals, and they're not going to have any more things like Minneapolis and that tragedy. And I would point out that, to my knowledge, what I've reported, there is no ICE presence in Minneapolis anymore right now. So, we have a choice to find someone to work with, and now that's a choice that I made. And there were multiple Democrats privately, they wish they wanted to work or to vote for him, but they know, and I certainly felt some blowback from parts of the Democratic Party to vote for him, but they just didn't want they didn't want the blowback.
Any Democrat who votes for him should face criticism, and MAGA supporter John Fetterman should also face backlash for this. As Chris Cuomo points out, and as has been mentioned before, Mark Wayne Mullen is not qualified for this position. He is an incompetent senator, often called the dumbest senator in America. Some may bring up Tommy Tuberville, who at least has a master's degree, though that doesn't make him a genius, but Mark Wayne Mullen doesn't even have a college degree. John Fetterman's reasoning is that, since these other candidates are worse, putting Mullen in the position is acceptable, and while that is his argument, it's hard to justify, might possibly be better than the other terrible candidates, but that seems unlikely because he is an idiot, and it shows how low the bar has been set. As Chris Cuomo points out, this man is not qualified for the job, and they couldn't find anyone who actually was. While much of the Trump administration and nearly everyone in it lacked qualifications, they still couldn't find someone with real law enforcement experience or experience in the Department of Homeland Security, leaving only this clown, Mark Wayne Mullen, who even tries to act tough in congressional hearings.
And again, if we did, well, please let me say this, Chris. If we would have killed his nomination, who was the next person Trump would have sent? Who's the next one?
So think about that ridiculous reasoning as well. It's like saying, if we reject this one, who will be next? The answer should be to find someone better. This guy is terrible, has no experience, and is an idiot. We should keep voting against candidates like him until someone truly qualified, not just a loyal follower, is put in place, and that's exactly what John Fetterman and all the Democrats should be saying.
No.
Well, for like the poll, that's just not accurate. There is one that's not valid. There was one around that same time that I'm 50-50 with Democrats. That's a fact. That too. And that in 2023 isn't relevant right now. Without a doubt, there are some Democrats, but it's, that's not really an accurate number, honestly.
Listen, I appreciate your take on it, and we'll see what happens when your primary comes up. A lot can change.
The morning consult, they came out roughly that same time, and I'm at 48, 49 with Democrats, and I was in the 60s for Republicans. Without a doubt, I for some strange way, I am more popular with Republicans, which is it's confusing because I vote in the 90s Dem line. And I haven't voted for the big ticket Trump ones like Big Beautiful Bill or Save Act, and for those things. So, there's a lot of misinformation, I guess, but I am guilty of being a very proud supporter of Israel, and I do support Epic Fury.
Let me ask you about Epic Fury. Do you think that you have a good handle on what's going on? As you heard me say off the top, there's a lot of mixed information coming out of this. We're now in the 5th week of this situation, and it doesn't seem like the regime is ready to lay down arms and make a deal. And I don't even know
Well, I
what
mean,
deal you can make with a bunch of terrorists who do nothing but lie and want to kill you.
Chris, I'm confused by that. It's like they can't fight. You know, like they have no capabilities. All they do is they fire off some random drones to civilians. I mean, they don't engage in a military way. Those cowards fire just random drones and they hit civilians. You know, they have no ability to stop. We could have bombed them and do whatever that they want. We want right now. So it's just silly, tough talk that they can't back it up. You know, their entire apparatus has been destroyed. And if firing a drone at some civilians, that's not the military. That's just a dying regime that's just trying to hang on. And now also that Ayatollah has been, you know, weekend at Bernie's, you know, since February. Why doesn't the media demand proof of life? He has not been seen. He hasn't had a statement, hasn't anything since then. So who's really leading? And it's strange where there are some Democrats in my caucus that they refuse to say, who do I trust, Trump or the Iranians, for God's sake? You know, it's sad. It was sad to me when, you know, my leader refused to describe it's a good thing that the Iranian military apparatus has been severely diminished on Morning Joe a couple of days ago. Why can't we say that's a good thing? Why can't we all agree that this evil regime has been broken and now all they can do is put out false, weird AI videos, and they can't even produce their technical, the Ayatollah. And if they want to wield his body around and pretend that they have any leadership, and now if someone thinks that firing some drones at civilians, that's not a military, because they haven't been able to engage on a military level right now.
Well, they certainly don't have the air power. We'll see what happens on Karg Island.
So John Fetterman claims that Iran can't fight and has no real capabilities, hitting civilians as a result, which he calls cowardly. But how about the United States? How many schools and hospitals has the U.S. bombed in Iran? We know the U.S. has carried out double-tap strikes, hitting a location and then bombing it again when medical personnel arrive. So isn't that cowardly too, according to John Fetterman? War is terrible and civilians will tragically be harmed, but when the U.S. bombs schools and hospitals and carries out double-taps while Iran is only using drones in defense, calling Iran cowardly seems completely unreasonable. And regarding John Fetterman saying his colleagues don't know who to trust, well, why would they trust Donald Trump? Trump lies constantly and frequently calls Democrats and the media enemies of the people, even recently claiming that Democrats are the country's biggest enemy alongside Iran. So how can anyone trust someone who says that? While it's true we may question Iran, we should also question our own government because Trump and his administration have repeatedly proven to be untrustworthy, lying and misrepresenting facts, saying one thing one day and contradicting it the next. So why would Democrats trust Trump on this war, especially when he acted without their authorization? On top of that, John Fetterman openly says he proudly supports Epstein Fury to me, that alone should disqualify any Democrat, and every Democrat should be opposing this. They should be saying what Bernie Sanders, an independent who caucuses with the Democrats, has said, that we never should have entered this war, that he opposes it, and that he will oppose any funding for it. That is exactly what every Democrat should be saying, and John Fetterman should face a primary challenge. In fact, I believe every politician who can't be challenged within their own party doesn't deserve re-election, and John Fetterman especially should be primaried, though sadly, he seems to have some level of popularity in Pennsylvania. And we all know that incumbents get re-elected at about a 95% rate, mostly because of name recognition. Once people recognize a name, they often just vote for them. But to me, John Fetterman should be out of the party. He might as well become a Republican because he is clearly a MAGA Democrat, a Democrat in name only. What do you think about what he said to Chris Cuomo? I wish Cuomo had pushed back more instead of doing his usual both sides approach. He can be strong on some topics and did push back a little here, but I wish he had challenged Fetterman much more, because he is one of the worst the Democrats have to offer. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I'll see you in the next one.